Here we go, Pro Target Constructor, Pro Tactical Constructor, and Eye Shooter. These are three different laser range programs offered by the same company, with the major selling feature being the ability to create your own shooting problems in competition stages. It should be noted that these programs were handed to me for a review, and that I've already done a review of Point Blank Simulator and Smokeless Range. I'm running these sims on Ultra on my computer. I'm not a computer guy, but I'll get this question in regards to my hardware, so I'm going to throw that up here, and you can freeze frame it and begin that whole spec snobbery in the comments if necessary. I am also piggybacking the simulator off of the camera calibration and hardware from Smokeless Range because I already had that set up, but to run these programs you'll need a high-speed camera that can detect infrared and software for the computer to calibrate your screen to. Shooting Soft's version of this is called Cam Clicker, and you can find the software and hardware to set up the range on their site. I started with Pro Target Constructor a few months ago, and when I opened it up the first time, it was immediately apparent that this was a detailed and expansive program that has a huge amount of options and exercises. When you load it up, there's a little drop down for the shooting mode, which includes IPSC, IDPA, police, military, and sport shooting. Sport shooting is just static marksmanship. The amount of pre-made exercise available, though, in each of these categories is off the charts comparatively to other sims. For instance, the IPSC package that Smokeless Range offers as an add-on gives you 10 pre-made stages that you could run through in less than 5 minutes. As you can see, scrolling through the lists in Pro Target Constructor, there's likely a couple hundred stages on top of the ability to create almost any stage you can imagine in the editor. You can see by the titles on the stages here that these are stage recreations of some big matches around the globe, and observing the stage overview and top-down image gives you a bit of a sense of what to expect in the stage. Even scrolling through the list of stages here on the IPSC and IDPA exercise modes, it's pretty apparent that this program is built by shooters that are invested in the sport, just due to the detail that you're seeing in the stages. After the initial menu hopping here, I jumped into the editor and decided I would try to create a stage with every item and feature in the simulator. What you're seeing here is me trying to figure out how everything works without looking up the instructions, because I thought this would be a good idea to see how intuitive it was and ensure that it's boomer safe. I think this gets a pass in that area to create a general stage plan. Getting into advanced options is a bit trickier, but nothing that can't be solved with some patience or assistance from the guys behind the code. Now, the computer specs might play a role here, but you can see the editing is pretty smooth, and dragging stuff around the map didn't cause any frame rate drops or freezing when I was using it. Later on, you'll see too, there's no hiccups when I'm throwing a ton of stuff on the map, and we'll get into even more intensive stuff with the tactical simulator, which were all handled no issue by my little potato computer. So the 3D stuff is pretty awesome. It truly feels like you're building a real stage that you can shoot in any manner you want, with the different camera positions that you can adjust. I can't think of any scenario or match that you wouldn't be able to recreate close to perfection in this editor. I say close because I couldn't figure out a way to make targets move towards the shooter or downrange instead of across the range horizontally. It was also super duper annoying that I couldn't turn off the anchoring of items to the shooter's position to fix the angle of the targets. Say you have a very detailed stage setup in the editor and you want to move one object around in a space. When you click on that object, it always resets the position to the kind of default and adjusts the rotation and distance from where you had it. An easy fix to this for the developers would be allowing the stage to be built in a free space and then going back and adding shooting positions and assigning targets to those specific shooting positions. This is the end result of about 2.5 hours of work on the editor, starting from scratch. This significantly impressed me, and most of all was a ton of fun to let the creativity flow without the editor holding me back in major ways. You can see there's a ton of potential in the editor to create exactly what you need to improve a certain deficiency in your skill set, or even recreate a stage of a match that you absolutely butchered in a competition. Sweet. In the results screen, you get some good info with the standard hit factor, score, time, penalties, etc. But what is great is the quick access to your groupings on target that are displayed in this no-nonsense fashion here. This is good data, especially to see if we're trailing on or off the targets during transitions between the targets, and even on the plate rack there. Something that is very helpful in terms of longevity of this simulator is the ability to share stages with friends or download more stages online as people offer them up. Because of the amount of stages and the ability to add even more, it would be awesome to be able to favorite a stage so you could make a custom list of stages that you're working on or that you enjoy. The simulator currently doesn't have this feature. You just got to remember what the good ones are. In the pre-made stages, there wasn't many that required a lot of thinking in terms of looking at target arrays and movers and timings to plan the best way to shoot the position. And because there isn't a lot of complex target arrays, the ability to filter out the good stages into a list would be pretty awesome, because currently the best stage was my stage. But I can't really complain about that when there is a billion more stages available out of the box and an editor that lets you tinker to your heart's content. It is extremely impressive and intuitive to create stages to your liking in that editor, and this is by far the best stage creator I've seen. This editor is really the heart of the program and the big selling feature over other simulators, but only if actually shooting the stages works well and is competitive with those other simulators. So I'm going to get into a couple of the negatives of actually shooting the stages. Now, most of these have been passed on to the developers already, who appear to be pretty receptive, and we'll see if they get addressed in later versions of the sim. Remember, adapting the program to shooters' needs is a telltale sign of a good program to invest in, so time will tell with that. Now, shooting the pre-made stages quickly showed some annoying quirks that weren't quite as apparent with other shooting simulators. The biggest one being the way the camera transitions work. Because of this, I avoid a lot of the stages with a large amount of positional transitions in between the target arrays, because it becomes quite confusing and wrecks the flow and visual tracking on the targets. It is practically impossible to shoot targets as they're coming into view, and it's difficult not to want to start aiming at them, despite them jumping around, which then leads to an awkward stalemate with your gun pointing at a position on the screen where you think the camera will end up, and then shifting to an actual position that it stops at, or going back to a tuck/low ready between each transition, which also feels pretty gross. A painful fix to this, because it's ugly, would be to make the transition much faster to reduce that angst that's building up to shoot the targets as you watch them appear, or make the shots accurate to the movement, because I'm ready to shoot it, but the sim isn't ready for me to shoot it. And this is my major complaint about the shooting portion of the simulator. Now, it should be noted that other simulators don't have perfect transitions either. There's still a lot of work to be done in this in the virtual space, but it is possible on both the other simulators that I've reviewed to shoot targets as they are appearing on the screen in a more accurate manner than in Pro Target Constructor. As of this review, the simulator doesn't give very reliable results while shooting targets as they're appearing during that camera transition phase. Oftentimes I would try to do this and the simulator will register the shots late or in a different location that I'd shot them. I'm not sure if this could be fixed with just adding more frames during that camera transition. This is really unfortunate because what the guys have done with these stages in a 3D space is absolutely incredible. But having the camera move around the stage rapidly and choppy doesn't seem to have a benefit to the overall experience. Each time a transition happens, we're staring awkwardly at the screen, waiting for the camera to move around the stage at a speed that doesn't really allow us to get a real situational awareness of the stage anyway. The thought of knowing the whole stage and having a stage plan isn't beneficial either, because we can't change the path around the stage without spending a significant amount of time in the editor to do that and reassign targets to positions. So with that, I tried creating stages in the editor that have extremely rapid transitions, almost instantaneous between the shooting positions, which doesn't allow the shooter to see the targets and be tempted to shoot them during the transition. These stages have been what I've primarily been shooting instead of the ones preset in the sim. Or I'll look through the preset stages and find ones with minimal movement transitions through the stage so I can have continuous flow. Again, I love that the stage exists in a 3D environment and feels like a real stage in a virtual space, but because we're moving around on a preset pathway, it doesn't quite feel like a benefit. Now, if it was possible to make stage planning a reality, this would be a 10 out of 10 simulator. This is already somewhat possible by opening the editor on a pre-built stage, deleting the positions, and then dragging them into new locations. But because everything's already in position, it's kind of hard to unsee the correct or most efficient path that was likely already pre-built. It would be cool if you could open a stage in kind of a blank position mode and throw in your own positions and then assign the proper targets to each of those positions. but this would only really work in a practical manner if the transitions were fixed to be smoother to incorporate shooting on the move and possibly making it quicker to assign targets to a position. You could also just have a walk-through button right before starting the stage, which moves the camera through each position and allows the shooter to see each target array they're about to shoot so they can make a plan for them. This is probably really difficult to do, but it would incorporate stage planning in a meaningful way and would place the simulator and stage editor on a whole nother level. Now, onto some minor quality of life complaints with the sim. Take these with a grain of salt because they are likely easily fixed by the developers and could be fixed by the time of this review, which, if that's the case, increases the value of the sim twofold, one because it gets fixed, and two because you know they're listening. First, it'd be good to get a restart button up at the top of the screen, just in that drop-down menu or on its own button, for when you have a glitch with the gun or when you're just plainly embarrassed with your performance, so you can reset the stage without going through all of the review menus. Secondly, it'd be good to have a more robust scoring system, something that actually logs more than just the top score, because as of right now, you just have a top score that overwrites and doesn't log the hit factor. So unless you beat your previous high score on a stage, you won't know how you did on certain days. It would be better if the screen was at the end of the course of fire as well, with a history of scores from best to worst, possibly even just a top 3. Another helpful thing they could do would be to put a top score or last score shot right on the stage overview when you're selecting your stages, so we have some more meaningful results when we shoot a stage. Because right now, again, you can shoot a stage perfectly one time and never be able to beat that high score again, meaning that none of your other scores get saved and displayed. And I'm just going to mention this, if you turn off the mouse pointer for shots during a course of fire, then on the review screen and menus as well, it will also not exist, which is moderately annoying. But because I'm a hacker, I found out you can hit the escape button and the mouse will come back up and then you can resume control without clicking randomly around the screen. My next gripe would be that shooting a no-shoot area of a target as one of your 2 scored rounds won't allow you to move to the next target array until 2 shots are in the scoring area of that target. This is a difficult thing for simulators to solve, and I don't really have an answer for it other than what Point Blank Simulator does in regards to allowing the player to choose when to advance the stage with foot pedals or shooting an arrow button at the bottom of the screen. The way it goes right now is you'll likely shoot all the targets on the screen, and then the stage will not move because it's telling you that you suck, and you didn't notice that you missed a target, or shot a no-shoot, or didn't put enough rounds on a specific target. It's hard to say what the preferred method of most people would be in terms of auto-advancing stages or manually advancing, but I think I personally prefer advancing the stage myself, whether that means I'm missing points at the end because I didn't call my shots correctly, or I'm missing an entire target. It's a better learning opportunity in this manner, which at the end of the day is why we're on the simulator in the first place. And lastly, this is my biggest ask from any simulator, is a random target array mode. Having a static shooting position with random target arrays that spawn in on each reset of the stage, where you can make a very quick plan when you see the stage and shoot it right away, then click the reset button and get a new target array to shoot. Because sometimes we just got to break down the training into small pieces that don't need to be flashy or beautiful in a 3D stage, they just need to give us results and a metric to improve on. This is something that a shooter could quickly jump into the simulator on and get some meaningful reps on a random stage where they're getting that brain working in a fresh manner each time. Now let's get into Pro Tactical Constructor. This is a editor slash simulator that is targeting the quote-unquote tactical market and includes the same great editor with a bunch of extra features and AI that you can place on the map that move around and make their own basic decisions that you can program with behavior trees that create different actions based on the player actions and assessments. One thing that I wasn't able to really use yet is the voice control of the simulator, but this is a great option for a lone user that doesn't have someone sitting at the helm changing the scenario based on the user's interaction with it. With voice control, the user can give simple pre-built commands to change the AI behavior, which is an awesome feature. Just thought I'd note that it's not quite in use yet on the simulator, but will be available pretty soon. Again, as you can see here, this is a great scenario builder. It is outstanding the amount of thought and detail that went into this editor. It can't be stated enough how innovative this is at a consumer level, that you can get meaningful training and assessments done on a simulator that can give different and random behaviors on each playthrough of the stage without spending $100 grand. Now, with that deep amount of customization and ability to create unique scenarios with a scaling amount of randomization, it should be noted that the avatar slash player models can be pretty confusing to set up in regards to the behavior trees. This is something that takes some time to tinker with and figure out the player actions that cause the behavior to change, when you would like it to change, and where you would like it to change in terms of having them wander around the map, or just use specific points that you pre-assign to move to. This isn't a negative to the simulator because it provides an incredible amount of opportunity to create what you would like. Just know that there will be some patience required to understand all the options fully. And again, just like Pro Target Constructor, this version comes with a huge amount of pre-built scenarios that have a bit more replayability to them due to the potential of random actions by the AI. This benefit of this randomness can't be overstated because it makes the player use their brain a little bit more and watch for the current foreground-background issues, as well as the imminent changes caused by civilian AI running around panicking and changing that foreground-background. This adds a layer to the simulator that hasn't quite been achieved to this level by others, and it adds some more gravity to the shots you're taking as you have some artificial accountability to the shots you're taking. That shot accountability, however, does also suffer from the same scoring issues of Pro Target Simulator, but in a different way. This is because it is much more difficult to score any scenario in a meaningful manner based on time or accuracy, because the scenario has random variables and different target zones like a leg or arm to shoot, which could open up an opportunity at the vitals. This is something that is nearly impossible to include in a generic scoring system, and a reason why the scoring in Pro Tactical Constructor matters much less. You can still observe your shot placement on each AI, which is helpful, but there doesn't appear to be an option to change the value of the target zones on the body. For instance, I can't find an option to ensure a cranial vault hit will guarantee a one-shot kill without decreasing the health of the AI to a level that body shots will also quickly incapacitate with 1, 2, or 3 shots. If I had to guess, it looks like headshots may have a 3 times damage compared to body shots. Lastly, this comes back to the same issue in Pro Target Constructor with the transitions, but with the flavor of this tactical simulator, there is some more enhancement that can be had with the ability to edit the paths between player positions that right now are automatically generated by the editor. This creates some issues when you've got a player position you want to end up at, but the pathway to get there is not ideal or doesn't offer a good camera position on the way to the position to show the user what you want them to see. The only solve to this right now is putting a position in between these to ensure the pathway doesn't take the quickest route, but then you're stuck at this position for a moment as there's no way to automatically move through it. Lastly, it would be nice to see a couple more simple animations for the AI so that when a gun is drawn from concealment, it isn't as easily apparent based on the same animation every time. Right now, the user will eventually cue in on the animation as opposed to the observation of the gun, and likewise with identifying the civilian AI. Some civilian AI will pull out a cell phone, but it uses a different animation from the bad guys, and it was also very rare throughout the scenarios and could be implemented a little bit better, especially if one of the selling factors for this program is the quote-unquote tactical element, and the assessments are a large component of that. All of these, however, are small complaints in comparison to what you're getting out of this program. And regardless of the animations being the same every time, the one that will often take you by surprise when blasting through a scenario is when a bad guy drops his gun and puts his hands up. It's nice to be using a program where your brain has these moments of thought where it needs to jump out of autopilot and decipher what is put in front of it. This is why if you're looking for a program that adds just a small layer of assessments and thinking regarding lines of fire or over-penetration, it may be worth the 3 times steeper cost from Pro Target Constructor. And this brings us to iShooter, their version of a portable virtual range that runs off of your tablet, desktop, or phone. The idea is that your webcam, phone, or laptop will sync up to a printed target that has QR codes in the corners and will build a virtual range wherever you are. Of course, this concept has been done before with other dry fire apps, but has never been taken to the extent with the variety of targets available here and the ability to hook up extra cameras to have a 360-degree dry fire area. This was relatively easy to set up on my desktop as the phone app wasn't available at the time, and all I needed to do was plug in a USB webcam, point it at my whiteboard that had some printed off targets from their app, and it was up and running pretty quick. I did notice that you can only print in European sizes, but this didn't seem to affect the calibration or results on the screen. You can see as I'm setting this up that there's still a ton of options even in this scaled down program, and there is the ability to create a bunch of unique exercises or recreate real life drills that you want to work on at home or on the road. Using this program on the road in a hotel would however require you to bring these paper targets with you or print them on site. This is an awesome idea to bring a laptop and webcam, or just laptop with internal webcam, and be able to set up a range on the go with these paper targets, and you can even leave your shot timer at home so it's not screeching through the thin walls while you're practicing. We'll get into one of the difficulties with front-facing cameras a bit later though. My first complaint with this program is that you have to create exercises for the exact targets that the camera is syncing to. meaning if you want to add another IPSC target to the mix, you have to create another exercise for the camera to include it in the session you want to run with it. Creating an exercise isn't overly difficult, as you can see here, but to have the options you want with the targets you want, you do need to tinker with some of the settings each time you add or remove a target. You can see briefly in the settings there as well that there is another voice control option that I wasn't able to configure, but it may be redundant anyway with the ability to control the app by the super cool controller target paper, which is an ingenious way to not have to manipulate your phone or computer to keep shooting. And you can see as I start shooting here that little numbers will pop up in green signifying the score achieved on that shot. This program also suffers from some permanent scoring issues, meaning once you are done that immediate array of targets, there are no scores saved, which tends to make sense because we're setting up what could be a temporary range or target array. But on the other hand, to have a simple exercise such as a build drill as a constant to come back to and observe the history of scores and hits on target would be very beneficial. The program does appear to pick up the hits in a reliable fashion when you're shooting and assign them to the right scoring zone. It is advised to use a red laser with this app, so the results may differ if you are only running infrared. I unfortunately couldn't get too creative with this program because I only had one webcam. I tried to use my ancient laptop with the internal webcam, but it failed me as well. Though, the issue with using the internal webcam is that the laptop would be facing the wall you're shooting, so you wouldn't be able to see your results in real time and would have to walk up to the other side of the screen to see your scores. Just like the other programs, iShooter has a bunch of different modes in it with the corresponding targets to choose from, but the targets of the different modes don't appear to integrate with the other targets if they aren't in the same category. Keep in mind though that if you use any of these targets, you have to have access to a printer to get them up on the screen. This means for this to be a truly portable range setup, you need to print off a big folder of targets and keep them in good condition if you want to run the same exercises that you've got programmed into the app as an exercise. To conclude this monologue, I think this is a great concept for an adaptable and portable range, but may need a few tweaks to become a must-have. The exercise creation is the big thing for me that needs to be worked on. It would be tremendously more helpful to have a free fire mode that would detect all the targets on the screen and then allow the shooter to click start and begin shooting them as they see fit with a button to reset the timer. If a shooter wants to create a specific exercise, that feature is already there, but the ease of throwing targets on the wall and getting into shooting right away trumps that specificity. The shooter can track the metrics they're working on themselves by spacing the targets how they require on the wall and then running a build drill, transition drill, etc., and tracking their own times with the help of the app displaying them in real time. I still think this is a good app for people that don't want a permanent projector and screen hooked up and don't need a program with a bunch of frills and cost added. The ability to run this off a phone propped up in a hotel room with a couple papers on the wall is incredible and is certainly a bonus excitement for those dry fire sessions on the road. Now, if the question came up to pick between all three of these programs, my easy answer would be Pro Target Constructor. It is feature rich and has all the necessities of building or recreating stages that assist a shooter in working on their deficiencies. It's also the right price. Would I miss Pro Tactical Constructor? Yes, but this is a program for a different mindset of training. If you want to build your shooting skills in a technical manner, then Pro Target Constructor or iShooter are all you need. If you have the extra cash and want to experience a unique training simulator that adds some additional layers to the soul skill of shooting, then Pro Tactical Constructor is a phenomenal option comparatively to the higher price simulators with video role players that don't really have the ability to randomize and adapt to the extent that Pro Tactical Constructor allows. In the end, there is still no perfect simulator on the market, but with significant innovations in programs like these, we're taking bigger steps towards that end goal.